Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Man and Music Show with me, Toby Allen, the podcast where we talk to MENA musicians and music industry leaders to find out real life strategies to solve real-time issues within today's music landscape. Before we jump into this week's show, I wanted to let you know that I would love to give all the listeners a free ebook called The Ultimate Resource List for Musicians. I've scoured and trawled the web for you so you don't have to, and researched over 170 websites and links all in one place that will help you 10 times your fans and multiply your streams. You can download your copy at manamusicsign.gr8.com. Again, that's manamusicsign.gr8, the number 8.com. I will also put this link in the show notes. So moving on, in this episode, I had the privilege to sit down with MENA, Indian and UK hip-hop junglist and all-round beats royalty, PAV4N from Foreign Beggars. So let's jump right in. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this one. Okay, Pav, welcome to the Man and Music Show. Great to have you on board.
Yeah, it's good to be here, bro. How you doing, man?
Awesome. We spoke recently. Just got to chat with each other. I found some of your stories fascinating, so I thought I'd get you on the show. So just for the listeners, why don't we just do a basic introduction, who you are and what do you do?
Hey, what's up, people? My name is PAV4N. I was born in Dubai. I'm of Indian descent. I'm a rapper, started rapping in about 96 in Dubai, moved to London, started a record label and a group called Foreign Beggars. Did Foreign Beggars for about 17 years, put hundreds of records out, about 7 or 8 albums. And now I've launched a new record label called Foreign Currency Recordings and 2 artist projects under Volgatron and PAV4N.
Awesome. So, right, there's loads in there. I think you've only just touched on the surface. If we go back, have you always been into music when you were at school?
Yeah, since I was a kid, really. I think my earliest memory of wanting to be in a band, I think I was about 5 years old and I just moved to a new school and I was hanging out with the kids and I was like, okay, cool, you're going to be the guitarist, you're going to be the drummer. So I think, yeah, we've wanted to be in a band since we were babies, really.
So hip hop rap is your main bread, so to speak, your main love.
Hip hop is my guiding light through all of this stuff, and it's kind of my central force. But I'm very involved in different underground electronic movements as well, like drum and bass, dubstep, UK garage, those kinds of vibes, and all the little subgenres that come with those. So although Foreign Beggars is mainly a rap group, we kind of delved into loads of cross genre collaborations.
Yeah. So how did Foreign Beggars come about? That's everyone knows you for the original as Foreign Beggars.
Well, basically, so my friend and myself and my friend Dag Torgesbrotten, aka Dag Nabbit, we both grew up in Dubai in the 90s and were in different little rock bands and metal bands, and so slowly got into hip hop production, and we started making music together. I had a rap group over here called SKA, and soon after that, we both got into jungle music, very heavily drum and bass when all the big raves were popping off, like Roast, AWOL, etc. And they used to release tape packs, and my friends used to bring back these tape packs of like recordings of the entire rave. So once we heard jungle in that context with the MCs and DJs and rewinds and just the raves going off with the horns and the whistles, we were just sucked in. So we started ordering loads of drum and bass vinyl and decided to start throwing parties. So we started throwing parties in Dubai, and whether it was a house party or renting out sports halls and throwing little raves, and there were other party crews here, so we go to the other parties and hand out flyers. So it was like a little mini rave scene that was happening back in the day in about 97, 98. And I think we were about 16 or 17, and when we were just hooked on it, I remember being at his house in Jumeirah, and we just had this kind of joint dream of moving to London to start a record label. So he left to Norway, and then I moved to London in 99 for university, but definitely to pursue my drum and bass dreams, So hit London, started going to pirate radios, underground parties, started throwing little mini raves with friends and just trying to get on the mic everywhere. And I had lots of friends in the hip hop circuit as well. So I used to go to all the hip hop open mics. So I was kind of doing the drum and bass and the hip hop thing both concurrently. And Dag moved to Norway, started throwing parties in Norway. And then those were my first international bookings. We'd fly over to Norway for the shows. Then Dag moved over to London in 2000. So he was at uni, I was in uni for a bit and then left to do music full time. But at his uni, we got onto the Ents committee at UCL and started throwing the drum and bass raves there. So we had their budget. So we were able to book like Ed Rush, Optical, Groove Rider, Andy C, Skibbity, that kind of stuff. So that was our first foray into booking all the big acts and putting all of our friends on the lineup kind of thing. So with that, we were out we were making music at the same time. I had a little studio at home. So making tunes, going to music house, cutting dubs, all of that, the whole jungle thing that was going on at the time. And then, so I left uni, Dag graduated, and actually I think Dag graduated in about 2002, and we just decided to get on the music quite kind of seriously, because at that point, the music, the drum and bass wasn't sounding as good as the hip hop stuff. So, we just kind of really got involved in the hip hop scene, and because we both were out of uni and we were just there kind of on a flex, just making tunes every day, and had met so many people in the scene, we just used to invite everybody over and just make tunes. So I think in that year between end of 2000, between like 2001 and the beginning of 2003, we probably made about 60 or 70 or 80 tracks with, loads of different MCs from UK and around the world. So by the time we got to the end of 2002, we had our first tracks ready to release, and running around trying to get signed, but just got messed around by loads of people. So we just decided to do it ourselves and start on our own independent label. Literally, it was this was before the internet, so it was pressing records, sending records to press, running around doing SOR in record stores, and loads of little bits of paper and loads of phone calls. And yeah, so it was good. It was exciting times for us. And I remember, like, once we pressed our first records, it was going to all of the open mics and rap shows and getting on the open mic and selling records there and taking people's email addresses. And yeah, it was a good vibe. It was a good vibe. And that was the birth of Foreign Beggars, end of 2002, beginning of 2003.
What was your direction then from moving forward to lead you 17 years down the line? What were you trying to do as Foreign Beggars or as a record label?
I think as Foreign Beggars, obviously, hip-hop is a competitive sport. So, it's about growing, becoming bigger, and world domination, basically. So we just wanted to, I think for me, the main aim was to release records and tour. For me, doing live shows was a very big part of it. And because we've come from this background of throwing, putting on events and throwing little raves and parties from we were 16, 17 years old, that was natural. So again, it was a very competitive space. So in the beginning, people weren't really trying to book Foreign Beggars. So we just said, whatever, man, we'll just put our own shows on, book everybody, and have a better party than everyone else. So that's how we kicked it off. So I received one piece of advice from a friend of mine. He said, once, as we were coming up to releasing our first record, he was like, once you drop this record, you need to make sure that you have another 12-inch or another release ready to go within 3 months, because you're about to start creating a hype. And if you don't drop something, it's going to look like you're falling off. So you need to have this mentality in place for a growth strategy. So that was it. Basically, we dropped the first record, and then the second record got, even bigger collaborations. Task Force, who were legends in the scene at the time, Dark Circle. So we collaborated with them, dropped it on our own label, built and used that to build up more hype towards dropping the album. So from that point, I think by the time we got to mid 2003, actually, no, that's a lie. I think by the time we got to the end of 2003, we put a few big shows on and dropped a few records. So people knew who we were. We made sure that the way that we promoted ourselves at the time, it was like from a very graffiti perspective, because there was no Facebook ads, there was no online advertising. It was guerrilla marketing. So we literally pressed about 30,000 stickers, and we were on every single bus stop, every single lamp post, every single toilet, in every single club. There was a Foreign Beggars sticker there. So within like a few months of the record dropping, being on pirate radio station, being in the record stores, and getting all those 5 pieces of press that you could get, because there was only 5 places that wrote about hip hop. We were kind of bang, we'd arrived. So just had to maintain that hype and keep building. So for me, from the moment we started dropping records, I've literally just been going full speed on the next project, next tour. and then kind of really starting to, once we kind of got London, England on lock, really started looking abroad, because growing up, coming from a graffiti background, we met loads of kids who were into graffiti. So when I travel, we'd go to a skate park and there'd be kids emceeing, doing graffiti, DJing, and all of those kids that we met in the different countries, whether it was France or Spain or Germany, or were all on their mission as well. So a lot of the rap scenes in all of these other countries was way bigger. So Spain, for example, the kids that we used to mess around with in the skate park, they started their rap crew and they blew up, and within 2 years they were playing in stadiums. So through that, when we went to Spain, we were playing in stadiums. So that's kind of how we got the word out, just by traveling and connecting with artists from all over the world. And I think being in London was a really central place at the time, because there'd be loads of people from the States coming through. And I think London's just quite, London, New York has got a real good symbiosis. So our stuff was able to travel over to the States as well. And then soon after that, and about, 2004, 2005, MySpace came about. And, we'd already kind of, stamped ourselves as a legitimized group, and we started touring loads. So that, and by the time MySpace came about, we were big enough to get featured on the front of MySpace. So that kind of did a lot for us. And then literally that's how we grew, basically, from every day waking up and just being on a flex.
I was just going to say, how different is that? Let me just quickly rewind. When you talked about the hustle, and I just remember doing in London, for those, and I'm sure in other cities, but maybe not in Dubai, but doing fly pack runs at 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning outside Astoria, outside Orange Club, outside these clubs. And it just took me to a big flashback. How different was the hustle now, the hustle for what people have to do now to the hustle that was back 20 years ago? And is there anything that you learned those 20 years ago that hustle then that you've taken into now, which is prevalent? Or do you think it's just a completely different ballgame?
It is a different ball game, but I think there was something beautiful about the hustle then, because unless you got up and went to the places, you're not going to meet the people. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's all about going there, making the face-to-face connections, having a personal relationship with the people, even if it means, hanging out, partying till whatever hours of the morning, but actually creating these bonds. But I think now it's very easy, because we have everything at our disposal, from the software to make the music, to master the music, to get everything pressed, to dealing with the distributors, all the way through to promotion. Literally, you could do everything from sitting at your computer. It kind of is like we're living in this sort of simulated world as opposed to the real world. You know what I mean? So back then, you'd be, to sell your records, you'd walk into a record store, speak to the guy who would treat you like a complete punk if he hadn't heard of you, and then they'd play the music, people would come in, they would play the songs, and people would buy it straight off the back of how good the music sounded. They didn't need to know what I looked like. They didn't need to know if I was Indian or English or black or white or green or whatever it is. And they didn't need to see how many followers I had. So literally it was the essence that really communicated more in those days. Whereas today, I think a lot to do with people's success is how strategically you can place your marketing budgets in the digital world, which is a little bit strange. And also, having come through this last 8 years of Instagram furor, you know what I mean? It's kind of, it's a very simulated existence. Whereas before, I think even in those days, if you put a record out, you had 3 months before you had to put another record. If you put a record out in 3 months, you were on your shit, you know what I mean? Whereas now you have to have, people's attention spans are so small. And the thing is, you'd put a record out, and then through it getting played on the radio and word of mouth and organically, it would kind of sink into people in a deeper way, rather than people seeing something's come out, click a link, see what it is, listen to 12 seconds of the tune, and they think they know what it is. Whereas you actually have to have lived experiences with the music that kind of really, I don't know, it just kind of was more of an intrinsic kind of connection with the music. Whereas I think what I've been able to bring from those days is the fact that get up and go attitude. You know what I mean? Like whatever, like it's like I remember I was a Dubai kid living in London on a tourist visa, trying to figure out if I can stay in the country, so I couldn't even get I couldn't get a job if I wanted to. So it was like, and also being the UK hip hop scene at the time was quite small. So anybody who was doing it was not supporting anyone else. So you really had to find ways to crowbar yourself into the scene. So it was literally living that by hook or by crook existence, which has kind of helped me come forth and kind of grow a thick skin to, you know, I don't care about the YouTube comment section. I don't care if X amount of people have, you know, if I see how many people have liked a post, all I will look at it is like, oh, have I posted this properly and done it at the right time? Have I done all the things I need to do to get the maximum effect? I'm not going to take it personally like people don't like me. So in terms of growing a thick skin and having longevity and learn and kind of learning preparedness, because to do a release back then, you know, to go through the process of making the music, mixing, mastering, cutting it onto vinyl, that was a longer process. You know, you had to understand that that's a 4-month process. You already had to think that far in advance, and understanding those things and learning how the release strategy comes into play when it comes to getting live bookings, and in terms of that strategy, all of those things that I've learned kind of have really helped me launch my new projects and come at them with a holistic vision.
Awesome. Great. Right. So one step forward. You started PAV4N.
Yeah.
Why? What's happened with Foreign Beggars? Why did PAV4N start?
Foreign Beggars, Foreign Beggars was interesting because it was, I wouldn't say it's a compromise, but being in a group with another, you know, there was two of us, Metropolis and myself, kind of leading the creative side of it. And we're very different people, very different musical approaches, very different rappers, but we have a lot of common ground in terms of what we love and our appreciation for the music, but our tastes are very different. So everything that's Foreign Beggars is a sort of meeting of minds. So it's somewhat of a compromise, not compromise in a bad way, but there's a lot of push, you know, there's a lot of mutual inspiration, so we have to find a common ground. So in terms of the last couple of years before Foreign Beggars was done, for me, as I started the group, Foreign Beggars was my central force, so I kind of got all my creative satisfaction from doing Foreign Beggars. I never felt that I needed to be a solo artist, but Metropolis came into the group a little bit later, and later in his life, he was an amazing producer, and he really wanted to explore different avenues of music outside the context of being a rapper and the bravado that comes with being an MC. So he really wanted to focus on some of his own projects, which kind of inspired me to focus on mine, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And as a rapper, because we've been in hip hop, we've been in grime, we've been in dubstep, we've been in drum and bass, we've been in big US EDM style sounds. There's so many different career paths I could have taken, and I wasn't quite sure where to go with it. Until we went on DJ Limelight show on the BBC Asian network, and he was playing tracks, different tempos with loads of Indian samples. Now, something clicked in my mind because we've been working in India very much for like the last 8 to 10 years, doing shows, developing the scene, bringing artists from UK, bringing artists from India to the UK, and kind of just working a lot on the electronic music scene to the point where the scene was built enough for us to book a Major Lazer tour. We booked a Skrillex tour. And while that was all happening, the hip hop movement in India was really bubbling, and seeing Divine come through and finally like the hip hop blowing up in a way that it wasn't like a watered down bubblegum version of hip hop. It was hip hop from the streets. It was people speaking their truths, and seeing that connect with everybody and empowering all of the kids at the same time that smartphones were kicking off, and it's just really incredible. So now what hip hop is in India, it's like completely unadulterated realness, you know, and it's coming from the essence of hip hop, not the packaged hip hop that comes from commercial America. So I kind of felt an affinity that, and being an Indian person who's had a 20-year career in this rap music, I finally felt that I could take my sound without having to dumb it down or change it back to India and bring my vibes and flavors to the mix. And yeah, that was the essence of it. So once I heard those beats, it clicked in my mind, because that meant I didn't have to, having the Indian thread through it meant I didn't have to stick to a genre, you know. So for me, that gives me the freedom to do drum and bass, dubstep, grime, house music, you know, whatever I want to bring to the table. But there's that element. And then about 11 years ago, in our biggest tune that Foreign Beggars put out with Noisia, at the end of the video, the track flips into drum and bass, and we turn into higher power versions of ourselves. And Ebo was an African god, James turned into Poseidon, and I turned into Krishna. So I turned into like an Indian god. And that's the first time I wore the blue skin. So seeing what a visual world that we live in now, and understanding that all people who are really pushing the bounds with the music are really incorporating multidisciplines, whether it's dance, art, music, fashion, all of the technology, all of those things together. And it just clicked. Something just clicked in my mind. It was like, oh wow, I can just do this blue full time and really tap into that whole fusing the Hindu mythology, my Indian roots, my heritage, with all of this UK street culture and music and underground stuff. So for me, the fusion of those two things just matched really well, and it kind of really works with the aesthetic. And once something clicked in my mind, I didn't have to deviate from the plan. I could just keep it going and going. It's just snowballed into what it is now. So for me, with Foreign Beggars, we've always been very, very concerned with how much with good artwork. Basically, that was where we started, with really good artwork, and then so that developed into the videos. And now for me, it's just giving me this like kind of crucible to bring all of the things that I really love together and have them mash up and work in a magical way.
I've been really looking forward to getting this part of the chat, because obviously we hooked up only a couple of weeks ago. And the first thing I did was, obviously, when we started chatting, went on, you sent me some links. And the first thing I saw was your brand. And, you in the blue skin and the Krishna look, and I just went, boom. I just thought, go on, there we go. Yeah. Now, wicked. That's just branding. Like, it just sets you apart from anything I've been seeing in the last couple of years doing what we're doing over here. And I was just like, so how important is it? You've touched base on how important it is for you. Is there any tips for any artists? Because you've obviously found something that sets you apart now. That's your identity. You've got your brand, you've got great music. And the third bit of obviously PR in yourself is having a good story. Can you give any advice to any artists about how important is a brand? Because you're a record label, you're a producer, you sign people. What could you give to aspiring artists who don't have that wow factor yet, or don't have, inverted commas, a brand?
Yeah, I think once you found yourself in the music that you want to make and the message that you want to get out there, just kind of really look into who your audience is, who your audiences could be, and what you want to communicate to them. I think one thing about what you do is having serious aspirations, so, or just consider what your aspirations are. Some people don't want to be the biggest producer in the world, or the biggest artist, or some people don't want to go on tour, but still think about what it is you want to do. If you want to put out, if you want to just put out music as a hobby, by all means, but if you want to put out music that's music and products that are iconic and that are really going to shift the culture, you need to think about these things and think about where you want to get to and how to get there and what's going to set you apart. Branding is very important, especially in this day and age. I think having consistent branding, I'm not talking about your logo being in the same place. I'm talking about the quality of the product that you put out is very important, because and the regularity the consistency and the organization behind how you release everything is very important, because that builds trust and that builds your fan base. Because right now, the way that stories are told, it's not, you can't just go and put out a 30-minute video or a 30-minute or a whole album or everything in one go. You have to drip feed and have it as a story that's told like as a living, breathing, what's the word? Like a living, breathing organism that's continually growing and going in different directions as a journey, so people can follow you on this journey. Because people can only consume bite-sized pieces of information now, but because there's so many opportunities to drop these little pieces of content or information, it's an opportunity for you to really get your brand out there. We live in an age now where releasing a record is almost an activity to promote your brand so you can go on tour. So it's really important that you kind of figure out who you are, who you're communicating with, and once you do that, there's an infinite amount of options of worlds you can play with. So I think it's very important to focus on the basics, the photography, the cinematography, the typography you use, all of those things are really important, and they all communicate a message, so whether it's how it's the choice of typeface that you've used to get your message out there. They all say something very important about your understanding of the art form and the concepts that you're dealing with.
So you started Foreign Currency record label.
Yeah.
And you've done Dented and Par Excellence. They're not going still. So it's everything now Foreign Currency.
Yeah.
What are your favorite platforms as a record label owner? And do they differ as an artist for Pavan moving forward?
I think as from a record label perspective, I think SoundCloud is still quite important because there's a big discovery there. There's people, and the way that it suggests music is pretty good. SoundCloud have just done something very interesting today, so I'm curious to see how that unfolds with the artist-driven payments that happen. Spotify have done something really good in terms of like how they set up their foundation from the beginning with the playlisting and the suggested music. I think there was this period of about 4 years when it was transferring from downloading and buying MP3s to streaming, where I couldn't find I just would never stumble across any of the music I wanted to hear. So I didn't know what was going on. But now that Spotify understands what I want to hear, what I'm interested in, it actually suggests all of the music that I would want to hear in my release radar every week, which is an incredible service. That's just from a listener standpoint. Also from an art standpoint, it's very good. I think it obviously, like anything else, like it gets weighted to the things that are successful. So the things that get successful and get very big aren't necessarily what the real music lovers want to hear a lot of the time. So I find a lot of independent artists right now are really falling through the cracks, because there are so many things that you have to have in place just to put a record out, from your publishing to your metadata, also your presence and promotion and pre-sales on all the streams, and building your followers on 3 or 4 or 5 different platforms at the same time, and maintaining a certain level of content and communication, which is just insane. It's literally just having all of your stuff and the back end stuff and the content prep to roll out is more of a full-time job than being a musician, which is really difficult for a lot of musicians who want to create groundbreaking music. So it's really important to understand how it all works, so that you can start collaborating with people who can help you in building a team. Because just doing everything on your own, unless you're a meticulous person who is ready to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning with perfect time management to work throughout the day, it's not going to happen. And unfortunately, musicians 90% of the time are completely opposite. They'll wake up when they wake up. They'll work when they work. They'll eat when they eat. So it's very important for musicians, because a lot of you musicians are very intelligent. Let's not get it twisted. Most of the musicians I know are very progressive and intelligent people. So it just takes a little bit of effort to figure out how things work, rather than being like, that thing where people do when they get to a certain age, where like, oh, I'm too old to figure this out. I'm guilty of that myself, to the point where TikTok, I know that it's where all the money and all the action is. Well, a lot of the action, but I told you, man, I've been here since the beginning of MySpace, and it's just getting to a point like it's a little bit too much. But having said that, by doing that, by not playing the TikTok game, I know I'm missing out on a mass market over there. So again, you just have to weigh things up. I think I think you have to have a presence on all the platforms, but I think it's also important for you to. The thing that's really strange for me is that the people at these platforms make it very difficult to get in touch with them and find them. So again, even for somebody who has had such a long-standing career, I probably can go through my own personal Facebook and know and have 30 or 40 people who work at these companies, but none of them have even made themselves known to me that they are doing this, or come out and offered assistance or playlist or direction or updating me on how things are working. So it's really interesting. I think once again, I think understanding how the game works, and then figuring out where you want to go, and then putting certain components in place. Like, for example, if you're an underground artist or a niche artist, you don't want to be hiring a radio plugger who's going to charge you £4,000 retainer for 2 months, because even if they do manage to get you on all the shows, what's that going to do for you in terms of your live touring or your streaming? You need to figure out what the moves you need to make, so it translates into the growth on all your personal platforms and building a real direct communication with the people who care about your music. So everybody's out there. The tools are there for you to get to them. And, you know, you can spend a lot of money or a little money, put more time or less time, but you just need to figure out how to get your message to the people who care about it. But that also means identifying the people who are going to care about your music.
Boom. Excellent.
Yeah.
Pav, so what's the future hold for you? What's up and coming over the next year or up till the end of 2021?
Up to the end of 2021, we're up in the frequency of releases that we drop on the label. So we've got 2 releases a week dropping for the next 11 months. That's singles, EPs, and albums. And we're also branching out to do more genre-specific stuff. We're signing more dubstep, more drum and bass. So I'm hoping that by the time 2022 comes around, we're operating like a major label, but as an independent. That's my dream. That's my plan, and I'm putting the team together for that. I've got lots of personal music from myself coming out. I've got singles and EPs and collaborative projects dropping till the end of the year, and I need to get an album done to drop at the beginning of next year. So definitely got my work cut out for me. With the Volgatron project, I'm signed to Never Say Die Records, and I've got a few different collaborations in the pipeline there as well. So my thing is right now to build up my profiles, drop more music, and then get the live show ready so that when everything opens up, I can take them on tour. I want to be able to take 2 different live shows on tour at the same time. That's what I want to do.
How are you holding up without being able to perform at the moment?
I'm all right, actually. I mean, I think I needed a break, to be honest with you, because as I said, since I moved to London, I've been at a rave every single weekend, you know. So whether I was there as a punter or there working, and you know, and later on in life, it was a rave in a different country every single weekend. So this time to slow down and get my things. I don't like this label, Foreign Currency. I don't think I would have been able to start it had I started touring in March. And if I'd done 50 shows by this time of the year, there's no way I would have been able to have the headspace to really put together a team to set up a label in the way that I have done. I definitely want to get back to shows. It's one of the most important things in my life. But understanding, I think the fact that I'm in an early growth phase with 3 different projects that need a lot of attention kind of keeps me, and the fact that I don't have to go and do shows right now is kind of giving me some comfort. But I'm gearing up for it, and I need to get out on the road and earn some money as well, you know.
Are there any growth hacks that you've learned or seen trends that you can do online during a pandemic? I think just having consistent product, and I think maybe diversifying a little bit. I've seen a lot of people, you know, actually break their whole chain and start communicating directly as people during the pandemic. Human connection is one of the most important things. So reaching out, one-on-one conversations, education, learning different things, learning different parts of the industry. I think those are important. I think I didn't jump on like, okay, cool, I need to figure out how I want to make loads of money really quickly in this pandemic time. I've kind of just kept it going and kind of lived much more of a humble kind of existence than before. But I think in terms of growth hacks, I think communication and preparation is probably the best growth hack I can tell anybody, so that once you get back and started, you can really get your project popping. Pav, awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Just as we wrap up, where can people get hold of you?
You can see me on Instagram. It's PAV4NCO. Same on Twitter. Same on Facebook. So it's PAVN with a 4, PAV4N, and then CO. For the Foreign Currency label, you can check everything at 4N Currency. For the number 4, letter N, Currency, and you'll find everything online. So you can check us on Spotify, Apple Music. Follow up the playlist, Complete 4NCY collection on Spotify, and you'll hear all the new music that we got coming out weekly.
Pavan, thank you very much.
Yeah, wicked, man. Good chat.
That's all for today's episode of the Man and Music Show. Thank you for listening, and I hope you got a lot of valuable information from it. If you liked this episode, then please make sure you subscribe to the show on iTunes, and if you could leave a review, it really helps with the growth of the podcast. Lastly, if you're a musician or music producer and want to join the region's thriving online music community and learning hub, then head on over to our Lab Musica Facebook page. Until next time, take care, keep safe.